The roast chicken smelled of rosemary, the potatoes crisped just right, and the table glowed under the chandelier. Everyone had gathered, and I had set the table myself, as I always did, with care only to be met with sneers instead of gratitude. My family talked over me as though I wasn't even there. Laughter rang, glasses clinked, and still, I sat quietly at the end, hands folded, pretending their words didn't sink like stones. "Move over, Fossil," my granddaughter sneered suddenly, her voice loud enough to hush even the clinking cutlery. I turned my head slowly, my eyes locking on hers, still half hoping she was joking. But before I could even shift, she walked behind me and with a sharp kick, knocked my chair leg. The chair wobbled violently, tipping me forward. I grabbed the table edge to steady myself, my fork clattering to the floor. A wave of gasps rose, but not for me. They laughed. My daughter covered her mouth with her hand, but her eyes glistened with amusement. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video. "Get up, Fossil," my granddaughter said, standing over me with her arms crossed. Her tone was venom, crueler than I thought a young girl could muster. "You don't belong at the table anyway." The humiliation stung more than the wobble of the chair. I bent down, retrieving my fork with trembling fingers while their laughter echoed, mocking, ringing in my ears louder than any hymn. My chest tightened, but I forced myself to sit back down, slowly, quietly. They had stripped me of dignity in front of my own blood. I ate little that night. My appetite had vanished. Instead, I memorized. I memorized the look of my granddaughter's smug smirk, the way my daughter smirked but stayed silent, the way the men looked down at their plates to avoid meeting my eyes. I memorized every word, every sneer, every cruel silence that made them complicit. And though I chewed quietly, my mind worked sharper than it had in years. They thought they were clever. They thought they had won. But while they feasted, while they poured themselves second glasses of wine, while my granddaughter gloated in the glow of her cruelty, I was already planning. I rose early the next morning, the house still asleep, the frost painting the windows. My bag was already packed, but not for me. I didn't leave the way they expected. Instead, I left behind silence and a storm that would soon freeze them out. Because that next day, while they still basked in last night's cruelty, it wasn't me who would be left out in the cold. It would be her. The next day stretched long, but I moved through it like clockwork, every step quiet, deliberate, sharp. I didn't speak a word to Evelyn, my daughter, or her spoiled child, the one who had shoved my chair like I was some broken piece of furniture. Their laughter from the night before still burned in my chest, but I kept my face calm, my voice still. Silence was my weapon now, and they didn't even notice I was sharpening it. At breakfast, my granddaughter strutted in, yawning, dragging her slippers. She leaned against the counter and smirked. "Still here, Fossil?" she said, crunching into a piece of toast. Evelyn giggled like it was the cleverest joke she'd ever heard. I stirred my tea slowly, the spoon tapping against porcelain. I didn't answer. I didn't give them the satisfaction. Instead, after they left for their shopping trip, I made my way to the small desk in the guest room, the one Evelyn had insisted I use when she let me stay. My hands moved carefully, pulling out a file I had tucked away months before. Papers, deeds, a set of keys, things Evelyn had long forgotten belonged to me, not her. She thought her name meant ownership. She was wrong. I went into town that afternoon. The lawyer's office was dim, wood-paneled, quiet. The man behind the desk adjusted his glasses when I walked in. "Back again, Mrs. Whitfield?" he asked. "Yes," I said, my voice firmer than it had been in years. "It's time to make the changes final." We went line by line, signature by signature. My assets, my accounts, my will rewritten. My granddaughter's name vanished from the page like chalk washed off in the rain. In her place, others appeared. The charities I had volunteered for, the shelter I had once depended on when Evelyn turned me away years ago. Even the scholarship fund for young women who worked harder than she ever had. By the time I was done, her arrogance had already begun to crumble. She just didn't know it yet. That evening, Evelyn hosted a dinner with friends. My granddaughter boasted loudly about a trip she was planning, chattering about expensive resorts, as though money grew from the trees in the yard. Evelyn nodded along, sipping her wine, smug and satisfied. They didn't notice me watching, memorizing again the way Evelyn's ring glinted in the candlelight, the way my granddaughter smirked when the guests laughed at her mean little jokes. But behind their glitter, cracks had already started to spread. The bank accounts she counted on were no longer hers to touch. The home she flaunted with pride was already shifting out of her grasp, and the friends who admired her so much would be the very people to witness her fall. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the humiliation of being called a fossil, of being kicked away from the table I once ruled, replayed over and over. But this time, I didn't feel powerless. I felt sharp. I felt steady. I felt ready. Tomorrow, I thought, she'll learn the difference between mocking a woman and underestimating her. Tomorrow, the cold she wished on me will be hers to endure. The next evening, the house was filled again, friends, relatives, neighbors, all packed into Evelyn's dining room. The fire burned bright, the table overflowed with food, and my granddaughter swept in like a queen, her dress shimmering, her voice cutting through the chatter. She looked at me once, smirked, and whispered to her friend, "She's still here. Fossil must not have anywhere else to rot." The friend giggled nervously, but I only smiled. The time had come. Halfway through dinner, just as she lifted her glass to make another cruel toast, the doorbell rang. Everyone turned. Evelyn looked irritated, muttering, "Who shows up uninvited?" But when the door opened, it wasn't just a visitor. It was the lawyer, folder in hand, briefcase tucked under his arm. The room grew still. My granddaughter's smirk froze mid-laugh. "Good evening," the lawyer said, stepping forward with a calm authority. "I'm here on behalf of Mrs. Whitfield." He glanced at me, nodding. I nodded back. Evelyn sputtered, "This isn't the time. We're having dinner." "It's exactly the time," I cut in, my voice louder, sharper than they'd ever heard, "because I want everyone to hear this." The lawyer opened the folder and began reading. He listed the properties, the accounts, the investments. Each one Evelyn and her daughter had bragged about, each one they thought was theirs. Then, with slow precision, he read how those assets had been reassigned to charities, shelters, and trusts. My granddaughter's college fund? Gone. Redirected to scholarships for girls who worked and earned instead of mocking their elders. Evelyn's dream of passing down the mansion? Vanished. The house would no longer hold her name, nor her daughter's. My granddaughter slammed her fist on the table. "You can't do this! You're nothing but an old fossil?" I interrupted, leaning forward, my eyes burning into hers. "Yes, a fossil strong enough to build everything you took for granted, and wise enough to take it all back." The silence that followed was thick, broken only by the crackle of the fire. My granddaughter's face flushed red, her voice cracked. "This isn't fair!" "Fair," I said coldly, "was me setting the table, cooking your meals, raising your mother, paying for everything while you mocked me. Fair was giving you a seat at the table, but you kicked my chair away. Now it's your turn to stand." The lawyer folded the documents, closed the case, and with that, it was done. Their futures had been rewritten, their arrogance had been carved out like the heart of a rotten fruit. Later that night, as the guests slipped out awkwardly, whispering about the scene, I stepped outside. The winter air was sharp but freeing. Behind me, through the window, I saw my granddaughter standing by the door in tears, begging Evelyn for answers, clutching her coat as the cold seeped in. And I thought to myself, last night she called me fossil. Tonight, she stood outside in the cold, stripped of comfort, stripped of certainty. She finally knew what it meant to be left out in the frost. I pulled my scarf tighter and walked away, my dignity restored. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.